Have you ever noticed that when you change how you perceive something, the entire experience transforms with it? People around you may still see the same dull, ordinary world, but suddenly you're experiencing something entirely different. They don't understand, of course. They'll dismiss your shifted perspective with skepticism, with remarks about being too deep or overthinking things, or with that uncomfortable silence when you try to explain what you've discovered. But deep down, what's really happening is simple. Your perceptual awakening threatens the reality they've accepted without question, and no one likes to have their version of reality challenged. Perhaps you are going through exactly this right now. You started to see patterns others miss, find meaning where others see randomness, maybe even question the very nature of what we call reality. And suddenly you began to feel isolated, peculiar, misunderstood. What no one told you, and what Huxley understood better than anyone else, is that this is the price of awakening to the malleable nature of perception. Not just any kind of awakening, but a consciousness so liberated, so deeply aware that it makes others uncomfortable. It scares them. It exposes without saying a word how much of their suffering comes from their rigid, unexamined ways of seeing. But why does this happen? Because a truly awakened mind is a threat to consensual reality. And Huxley was clear about this. When you decide to take control of your perceptual filters, reconstruct your understanding of reality, and abandon the comfortable illusion that there is only one way to see the world, you become dangerous. Dangerous to the system, dangerous to others, and most importantly, dangerous to your former limited self. This video is a call, a challenge. It's not made for those who are comfortable with their pre-packaged perceptions, nor for those who want simple answers. It's made for you who is tired of being a prisoner of your own conditioning, who feels on the verge of a perceptual breakthrough, and who is ready to build a reality that no one can invalidate, a way of seeing that no one can manipulate, a perception that terrifies because it does not conform. So if you feel ready for this path, a misunderstood, challenging, but absolutely liberating path, stay. Because what Huxley has to teach you will confront you, but it can also set you free. And after this, you will never see the world the same way again. Aldous Huxley was not just a novelist or philosopher. He was an explorer of consciousness, someone who had the courage to look beyond the veil of ordinary perception and not only peer through it, but tear it apart. And it is precisely beyond that veil, in that altered state of awareness that many fear, that he found the source of true freedom. Because for Huxley, it is not in acceptance, conformity, or shared delusion that a human being transforms. It is in the shattering of perceptual habits. It is in the dissolution of conditioned seeing. It is in the deliberate reconstruction of reality. He wrote, "There are things known and there are things unknown, and in between are the doors of perception." This is not poetic metaphor. It is cognitive revelation. It means that if you want to control your reality, you need to abandon the naive belief that what you perceive is what is real. No, true control comes when you recognize that perception itself is the creator of your experience. When you stop asking for reality to make sense and start understanding that you are the one who assigns meaning to it. Think of the moments when your perception shifted dramatically. Was it when everything appeared normal? Or was it when something broke your perceptual patterns, disoriented you, forced you to see with new eyes? Huxley believed that our ordinary perception was not a window to reality, but a filter against it. He did not romanticize normal consciousness. He exposed it as a limitation. And if you can change your relationship with your perceptual filters, with your cognitive biases, with your habitual ways of seeing, you begin to shape something extraordinary, a self-determined reality. And it is precisely there that the world begins to be disturbed by you. Because while most remain trapped in the prison of ordinary perception, you will learn to bend its bars. While others beg for consensus reality, you will create personal truth. But this transformation requires a radical break with everything you were taught about what is real. Controlling reality is not about changing external circumstances. It is not about manifesting material outcomes. Controlling reality is recognizing that the only reality you will ever experience is the one filtered through your perception, and that perception is within your power to transform. But Huxley knew that perceptual flexibility by itself is not enough. You can be lost in it if you do not have an inner anchor, a center of awareness. And that is why in the next part we will talk about the most decisive moment of Huxley's philosophy when he dismantles the ego and places upon you the full weight of perceptual responsibility. Because when there is no longer a fixed self to cling to, it is within your conscious awareness that reality needs to be recreated. When Huxley declared, "The mind is its own place, and in itself can make a heaven of hell, a hell of heaven," he was not offering comfort. He was issuing a warning that many still do not understand today. What he dismantled was not just the reliability of perception. He dismantled the perceiver itself, the illusion that there is a stable, continuous you experiencing an objective reality. The illusion that your identity is solid, your personality fixed, your sense of self unquestionable. The dissolution of the ego is the end of any perceptual certainty. And that is frightening because until then it was easy to blame reality for your suffering. It was comforting to believe that what you perceive is simply what is, that your reactions are justified by external circumstances, that there is an objective truth that will validate your version of events. Huxley violently tears this veil away. He looks you in the face and says your perception is a creation, not a reception. There is no objective reality as you experience it. Now you are the artist. And this is where the true construction of perceptual control begins. Because most people collapse when they realize they are the architects of their suffering, without excuses, without blame, with no one responsible but themselves. But those who have the courage to face this without crumbling, they begin to forge an unshakable awareness. With the dissolution of the ego, Huxley pushes you into the abyss of radical responsibility. You should not accept your perceptions. You must create them. You should not react. You must respond. It is the birth of perceptual sovereignty, and along with it comes the weight. Everything now depends on how you choose to see. There is no more objective validation. There is no more consensus reality to fall back on. Either you construct your perceptions consciously, or you suffer the consequences of unconscious seeing. But here is the secret. This responsibility that frightens you is also the greatest source of freedom you can have. When you understand that no one will fix your perception but you, something within you awakens. An awareness that compels you to see differently even while everyone else remains blind. That forces you to interpret for yourself, to experience for yourself, to perceive, not because society said it is accurate, but because you decided it is useful. It is in this rupture with perceptual dependencies that Huxley prepares the ground for something even more transformative. The emergence of a new way of seeing. A type of perception that does not follow the patterns of cultural programming, that does not need validation or consensus. A perception that creates its own filters, that surpasses its own limitations and experiences reality as an artist, not a passive observer. A way of seeing that frightens the perceptually trapped, because it forces them to recognize how constrained their own vision has become. This perception has a name. Huxley called it the liberated mind, the awakened perspective. And it is about this that we will talk now. Because if you want to manipulate reality so effectively that no one can control you, you need to understand how to become this figure who lives above perceptual conventions, guided only by their own conscious awareness. Let's dive into this. Huxley did not believe in the gradual and passive evolution of human consciousness. He believed in disruption, in perceptual revolution, in the deliberate expansion of awareness. And that is why he conceived the idea of the liberated mind, the awakened perspective. It is not about supernatural abilities. It is not someone with mystical powers. The liberated mind is a consciousness that has overcome everything that constrains ordinary perception. Conditioning, socialization, cultural indoctrination, the need for perceptual validation. The liberated mind does not seek to be understood. It does not ask for permission to perceive differently. It creates its own reality tunnels and travels through them, even if that puts it at odds with consensual reality, and that is exactly why its perception becomes uncontrollable, because it is not built on shared delusions. It does not need external validation to authenticate its experience. It is self-generating. It feeds on its own will to perceive, the deep impulse to shape reality according to its own design. This is the central point. The liberated mind does not conform to reality. It imposes meaning on reality. It does not seek comfortable perceptions. It seeks useful ones. It does not ask, "Is this how everyone else sees it?" It asks, "Does this way of seeing serve my evolution?" And this shift in perspective changes everything. Because when you start to see yourself as a creator of perception, not as a recipient, the way you experience, interpret, and respond transforms completely. But here lies the challenge. Becoming this kind of perceiver requires sacrifice. You will have to kill parts of yourself that still crave perceptual validation. You will have to face the isolation of seeing what others cannot or will not see. You will have to bear the weight of constructing your reality from scratch, without consensus, without confirmation, without the comfort of shared blindness. And most people cannot handle it. They give up before they start. They run back to the safety of conventional perception, socially approved interpretations, and reality tunnels that someone else designed for them. The path to the liberated mind is solitary, and Huxley knew this. He himself lived on the periphery, misunderstood, called eccentric, isolated from the world he was trying to awaken. But it was in that isolation that he found his authenticity, and this is what you need to understand. The more consciously you control your perception, the further you drift from consensus reality, the deeper you go, the more you disturb. The construction of the liberated mind is the most challenging and transformative process anyone can undertake, because it requires you to dismantle everything that is not authentically yours. Everything that has been programmed into you by a limiting culture, by a society that rewards perceptual obedience and punishes cognitive sovereignty. And only after dismantling do you begin to build. But this construction does not happen amidst agreement. It happens in perceptual solitude, in cognitive independence, in the profound isolation that separates the awakened from the asleep. And that is exactly why, in the next part, we will dive into the most neglected and most powerful aspect of this journey, the loneliness of the perceiver. Because the truth is that to become perceptually sovereign, you will have to learn to see alone. And few are ready for that. Are you? If there's something that no one tells you about the path of perceptual sovereignty, it's this. The more conscious your perception becomes, the more alienated you feel. And it's not because you separate yourself by choice. It's because shared reality starts to feel like a collective hallucination. Huxley spoke clearly about this. The awakened mind, the one who breaks away from perceptual conditioning, who does not accept ready-made interpretations, who perceives for themselves, inevitably distances themselves from the consensus, and that distancing hurts. But that pain is necessary because real perceptual growth requires cognitive space, and you can't expand your perception while being tied to the reality tunnels of others. Most people live within an invisible perceptual prison where every interpretation is predetermined. Every reaction is scripted. You've gotten used to seeing in a group, perceiving like the group, feeling secure because your reality is validated by others. But what Huxley proposes is the opposite. He tears you away from that comfort and throws you into perceptual wilderness. In that wilderness, there are no confirmations, no validations, no guides. There's only you, your doubts, your cognitive dissonance, your fear of being wrong, your desire to return to simpler seeing. And that's where the real test begins. Because what will most people do? They will run back. They will hide again behind their perceptual filters. They will pretend they don't see, that they don't know, that they don't understand. But you, if you truly want to become someone that no reality can imprison, will have to stay. You will have to endure the isolation that reveals what you really perceive. Huxley said, "The man who comes back through the door in the wall will never be quite the same as the man who went out." That is the essence, the transformation of perception, the rarest and most powerful achievement anyone can attain. Because when you truly control your perception, no one else can dictate your reality. No one else determines your experience, and no one else can limit your awareness. But this control comes with the weight of perceptual solitude. You will lose common ground with people. You will be misunderstood. You will hear that you are unrealistic, delusional, disconnected. They will try to pull you back into shared blindness. They will call you impractical, overthinking, extreme. But that is the price of not being perceptually domesticated. It is the price of not needing confirmation. It is the price of not seeing as a mirror of others' expectations. And here is the raw truth. If you cannot stand perceptual solitude, you are not ready for cognitive freedom. Because all real perceptual control comes with separation. Separation from unconscious filters, from comfortable interpretations, from validating consensus. That's why Huxley saw perceptual independence as a privilege, a frontier where the authentic awareness finally has space to emerge. But this liberated mind, this elevated consciousness does not just see differently. It begins to create what others cannot imagine. And with that comes the second inevitable effect, the confrontation with perceptual conformity. Because when you start to control your reality, the collective delusion feels it and it reacts. And that is exactly what we will talk about next. The danger of perceptual consensus. Because the world does not pursue those who see the same. It pursues those who dare to see differently. Huxley did not fear dictators, propagandists, or overt manipulators. What he feared and exposed with philosophical precision was the subtle and erosive power of consensual reality. That invisible system that keeps everyone perceiving the same way, that punishes those who dare to see differently, that rewards perceptual compliance and disguises cognitive limitation as sanity. True control, according to Huxley, does not come from above. It comes from the sides. It comes from the social pressure that demands you remain blind so that others do not have to see. And that is exactly what happens when you start to perceive differently. When your awareness becomes clearer, your interpretation more independent, your presence more disruptive, you begin to disturb, not because you're seeing incorrectly, but because you are seeing what others have agreed not to see. You are breaking the perceptual contract, and society hates those who break perceptual contracts. Consensual reality cannot tolerate perceptual sovereignty, because that sovereignty exposes the arbitrariness of what most consider real. Huxley called this the tyranny of the normal, a collective agreement built by those who, unable to expand their perception, decided to limit everyone else's. They transformed perceptual freedom into delusion, cognitive exploration into escapism, interpretive independence into disconnection. And with that, they created a perceptual system that protects the blind and condemns the seeing. But make no mistake, it is not out of concern. It is out of fear because the perceptually limited do not want to be awakened. They want the awakened to be discredited. That is why when you start to liberate your perception, they begin to pathologize you. Sometimes directly, sometimes subtly with diagnostic labels, dismissals, ridicule. But the message is clear. Return to our shared delusion. You are making us question our reality, and you are unintentionally just by seeing what you see. Huxley understood that most people live in a state of perceptual conformity, an existence shaped by unconscious filters, unexamined assumptions, and inherited ways of seeing. And anyone who questions this state is treated as a threat. But do not be deceived. Perceptual conformity does not attack with force. It attacks with consensus, with normalization, with the weight of numbers. It will try to make you doubt your own perception. It will make you think you are wrong for seeing differently. It will use all cognitive resources from gaslighting to social rejection to make you close your eyes. And it is at this moment that many surrender because they cannot bear to be the disturbed, the delusional, the detached. But Huxley would give you another name, necessary. Because while the world revolves around recycled interpretations, manufactured perceptions, and comfortable illusions, it is the sovereign individual who brings the necessary disruption for new awareness to be born. Your different way of seeing is the catalyst of evolution, but it is also the target of resistance. Seeing consciously, perceiving independently, experiencing authentically. All of this is an act of rebellion against perceptual conformity. And like any rebellion, it requires preparation. It requires tools, but not physical tools, perceptual tools. And that is exactly what we will talk about now in the final part. Because there is a very high cost to developing a perception so conscious that it frightens. But there is also a reward that no one can take away. In the next part, you will understand the price and the power of being perceptually sovereign. You made it this far. That already sets you apart from the majority. Most people would have closed this video at the first challenge to their reality. They would have run away at the first perceptual discomfort. They would have turned it off the moment they realized this is not content meant to reinforce their existing filters. It's a call to action. A call for those who are ready to let go of the comfortable delusion and face the malleable nature of reality with their awareness fully engaged. Because building a perception so conscious that it becomes threatening is not just a choice. It's a renunciation. You will lose. You will lose connections that were based on shared blindness. You will lose certainties that required perceptual limitation. You will lose the ability to be content with unconscious seeing. But in exchange, you gain something invaluable. Authenticity, clarity, freedom. You will begin to notice that most people live in a perceptual trance, and that your awakeness is disturbing, that your clarity makes others uneasy, that your way of seeing reveals more than most are prepared to acknowledge. This control does not come from outside. It is not found in manifestation techniques, nor is it achieved with visualization exercises or simplistic affirmations. It is cultivated deep within consciousness in the silence of perceptual examination, in the choices that no one witnesses. It is the result of an internal revolution between how you were conditioned to see and how you choose to perceive. And this revolution has no end because the truly sovereign are not those who have escaped all filters. They are those who continue to expand their perception even when they could already stop. Huxley did not want to create followers. He wanted to provoke perceptual earthquakes. He wanted you to stop accepting programmed reality, to stop settling for inherited filters, to stop seeking in consensus what can only be built with awareness, intention, and cognitive courage. He wanted you to become dangerous, not in a destructive sense, but in a liberating sense, so liberated that your mere existence forces others to question what they've been trained not to see. And now I want to invite you to do something that will solidify this process. Write in the comments a perception you've changed that transformed your experience, an interpretation you've questioned that others take for granted, a way of seeing that makes you feel isolated but that represents your authentic awareness. This is part of the journey. Claiming your perception, acknowledging your sovereignty, and more than that, declaring that you will no longer be perceptually programmed. And if this video touched you, if something inside you was awakened, don't stop here. The next video is just as important as this one, perhaps even more so. It continues this journey. And if you've made it this far, you know you're not watching just out of curiosity. You are here because something in your perception has already begun to shift. So keep going. You are not alone. You are just seeing ahead. And that, my dear, is frightening, but it is also liberating.